until it's not.
What is that machine called? What is that machine called?
Okay, you're on record.
Speedometer.
Okay. I'll call the special meeting, January 29th, 2020, to order. Roll call, please.
David?
Here.
Oh, sorry, hold on. Melanie?
Here.
Craig?
Here.
Becky?
Here.
Jay?
Here.
Andy?
Here.
Okay, all present?
Okay. David, would you like to lead us in prayer?
Lord, be with our village tonight as we listen to our sheriff tonight, as he's our protector, Lord, as you are our protector for our lives. And Lord, be with the council and our mayor as they set and make decisions in what we need to do. In your heavenly name, amen.
Pledge allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, that was yours.
We called this town forum special meeting so that we could discuss the sheriff's contract that expires at the end of February. The sheriff has been providing services to us since 2011? 2012, in place of our police department. And we wanted to hear from the public to see if they had any concerns, any comments. This will be run like a regular meeting where if you wanted to make a comment, then we're going to have you come up and stand next to David, and so that we can hear your comments. We're having trouble with that on our YouTube video, and people are going to want to hear what your comments are. So I do ask that everybody be respectful. This is a meeting where we're just trying to get some questions and answers out there. If I feel at any time that we're straying from that, I probably will ask somebody to sit down. So, and I don't expect that. Chief Swaney, as most of you probably know, is new to his role as chief as of when? Sheriff. Oh, I'm so used to calling. Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I even wrote it down, Chief. I'm so sorry. Sheriff Swaney. When did you become sheriff? In March. Okay. And he has been with Madison County since 1997. Started law enforcement career in 1990 as an auxiliary officer in West Jeff. So at this time, I would like for Sheriff Swaney to do a presentation, and then we'll do a question and answer. Yes, please.
Most of you guys don't know me, or if you haven't had a chance to understand where I come from.
I was getting ready to say, Sheriff Swaney, would you mind coming up to David or maybe to Andy?
How about Andy? Is that okay? Please do. For those of you that don't know me or know much of my background, give you a little bit of a background. My family is from Madison County. My dad was born and raised on Liberty Street in London, where he graduated from London High School, played football with, we know who the famous LeBeau, Dick LeBeau, and they're all good friends. And he went into the military, ended up being a Marine fighter pilot. I was a Marine brat growing up. We moved around the country where he retired from Pensacola, and we moved back to Southwestern City Schools area. He's trying to make his way back home, and then I graduated from Franklin Heights over at Southwestern City Schools, and then found my way as an auxiliary officer in West Jefferson, Ohio. My dad bought the old Bowser building in West Jeff, and then just kind of kept migrating back towards home. Started my career as an auxiliary officer in West Jefferson. From there, I went to Plain City, worked a couple of years for the village of Plain City, and went to Union County and worked a few years up there. And then Sheriff Saltzman hired me in Madison County because I love Madison County, and this was home to me. I live in just north of West Jefferson, Jefferson Township. I started my career with Madison County as a midnight road deputy. Most people would come by after a while there. We got a contract where we had cars. We got to take cars home, and you'd meet people, and well, who lives here? Well, so and so lives there. Well, who lives there? Well, so and so. And they says, well, who's the guy that lives on Morgan Road? He said, he never works. So what do you mean he never works? He says, well, I go by there in the morning and the car's there, and I go by there when I come home from work and the car's there. And I said, well, that's me. I said, and I work midnights, and when you guys are sleeping, I'm working. I did about 10, 11 years of midnights on the road, got promoted to sergeant, and when our lieutenant had retired, moved into the lieutenant spot, and then when our chief had retired, I just kind of took over those duties, and Sheriff Saban, who was one awesome sheriff. I wish he would have stayed till we both retired together, but it was time to move on. He decided it was time to retire, and I am the one that got appointed for the job, and I am pleased to be your sheriff. It's an honor to be your sheriff, and I hope that in my tenure as sheriff that I leave the office in a better place than what it was when I found it, because I think that's what you do in any position that you do. With that being said, I know we're here tonight to talk about the contract. I provided the updated contract. I was here just weeks back because I knew that you folks were going to start talking about budgeting. And we had another meeting where we all had to sit down and had an opportunity to talk about services offered and hours worked and understanding of what we provided the village. And I thought the meeting went well. And in turn, we had some complaints and we had some suggestions as to some things that the residents in the village would like to see. So now that we could start implementing them, and I know one of them was presence of officers even in the council meetings. And I know there's one evening that we had a mishap, but due to an ill employee. But I hope we're trying to move forward with that. So, I came in with a contract that was 3 years old. I did not write that contract. Sheriff Saban wrote that contract. And the village traditionally had suffered any increases for what they were paying for. I understood that. I do understand the financial burdens that everyone faces. I understand the financial burdens that the village probably still faces, and I come into that meeting with a minimal increase of 3%, when over the years it could have been a 15% increase. I asked for that, and I think because I want to continue to help the village. I thought the meeting went well. I got rumor back that we even had a potential agreement of a 5% increase. So I guess I'm here this evening to answer questions and move forward as to, I provided the new contract with a 5% increase. And I hope to and plan to continue that contract with no increases. So with that, Roland, I guess we'll have any questions, or we can start
Can I ask a
the concerns.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to start with council members first to ask questions?
Do you want me to stand up so I can answer to the mic?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
One thing that you just said that I'm going to have lots of questions, but one thing I'd like to know right now, you did come to our finance meeting, our finance work session on October the 3rd.
Yes, ma'am.
And as you mentioned, there was several things that we discussed, like to see changes made and a few things like that. And at that time, you did tell us a 3% increase is what you were looking for?
Yes, ma'am.
And I am wondering personally, you just said that you got a rumor that we wanted to give you 5% instead of 3%?
Yes, ma'am.
So we wanted to pay you more than you asked for?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just telling you, we wouldn't want to do that. That's not something we'd, as council, had ever talked about and would want to knowingly offer a contract more than they asked for.
Okay, well, I wouldn't have did it if I wouldn't have got the information. I was asking for a 3% increase.
Okay.
Anybody else on council have a question?
Oh, I'd like to ask the sheriff, and this not having to do with contract or anything.
Yes, Dave.
Sheriff, I got two different questions. As you know, I'm the block watch leader here too. I've had people complain that sometimes they had to wait for a deputy to come down from London when we're supposed to have one in the village. And the other one is, how is the situation in Madison County right now with the war on drugs?
Okay, so
And
to
I'll let you both.
answer the first question, where you're supposed to have a deputy in the village, he had to come from London. Do you know the demographics of the situation that happened? Was it on a shift change, or did the officer in town arrest somebody and have to take him to London? Can you answer? Because I can see that's not very far-fetched. That could very well happen.
The situation happened, from what this person told me, it happened to him in the morning hours, so could have been during a shift change, it could have been.
Okay.
And everything, and, but they told me about this and everything, but I've been satisfactory what you've been doing.
Thank you.
And but I do want to know about how bad, I know Chillicothe's having a real bad time. Me and you talked about this earlier. How's the situation in our own county? Is it going even, or are we keeping a pretty handle on it?
In regards to the drugs, we're doing our best to fight the drug epidemic. I mean, if anybody's looked on Facebook or looked at Madison Press today, you see that we're working. That was in London. We know how busy they are with it. You know, we do have the reports down here. We do have intel stuff down here, and we constantly work those. So not if it's going to happen, but when it's going to happen, that you just be prepared that if you do see us come in force like that, that you understand. Of course, loose lips sink ships. We don't talk about our ongoing drug investigations. We'll let you know that when we take action on those. Not to mention the small drug arrests that you folks probably don't see. You see the numbers, or they say that, hey, they arrested so many in this here, they arrested so many here. You know, the officers that you have working evening shifts around here and second shifts during your busy hours are busy. They are making cases and they are making arrests. So when we need those numbers, you want to try to get some, actually the type of arrest or whatever, we can get those records and get those provided to you. And it should be done in moving forward as we go in the village council meetings. If we find something that you're really focused at, that you want that report on, communicate with me, communicate with the deputy that's down here exactly which ones you want to look at or which ones you want to kind of follow. Does that answer your
I
question,
got one
Mr.
more
Timmons?
question.
Oh, go
Okay,
ahead.
I got one more. And the school bus situation here in town, Andrew, me and you've discussed this.
Yep.
And the buses, you know, they pick up the kids early in the morning. It's always pretty dark. And I think, and I've heard at times, some of the cars, Andy, I think we both talked about this too, are not really given in to the buses at times. That worries me because, you know, and I thought, if a deputy in town or, you know, could check out on that
Sure.
once in a while, it'd be really great. And I thought that's.
Sure, and a lot of people don't know as well, when there's infractions on your school buses, they do bus reports. They email those or they mail those to us, and the officer responds to them. And it might not even be the officer in town that responds to it. If it comes from a Madison Plains school bus, they'll send that up, and I may even have my traffic officer investigate. And sometimes they can even cite off those. So what you see, or you say, well, the town cop didn't do anything, you know, about it once they filed that complaint. Well, another officer could have did it as well. We do that as a whole, as my office. So.
Yeah, I have a few things from the October 3rd meeting that we had discussed. One of the things I was surprised to hear, and maybe you could give the public some explanation, that the Sheriff's Department will not enforce our village ordinances, only the ORC.
That was not true. I think we have a list of village ordinances that we do.
Well, you said that, though. You told me that. You said that.
No, I think we were talking about a specific ordinance. There is a few ordinances that we can enforce, and usually it was the stop signs, the red light signs, I think there was some speeding ones, and I can get that list to you that we've prepared for it. That's been in effect even before I've taken over. Mm-hmm. But there's some of the village ordinances that we won't enforce. I think we were talking about like high grass or yards or maybe parked cars, but I think we also said if we needed to serve them a notice, that you could use the deputies to serve those notices.
Well, that's been another point of contention. When I first got on council a couple of years ago, and we have it written in our village policy that a sheriff will attend the nuisance and abatement meetings, and those are once a month. And I've been nuisance all last year and this year, and there hasn't been a sheriff once.
I apologize. When I looked in the contract, I did not see that in the contract.
Okay, but that, I think our problem was more than getting you guys to enforce the high grass, was getting the Sheriff's Department to hang those notices and things that the council and the committee members weren't comfortable going to people's houses and hanging
Yeah.
notices on. And there
didn't we
has been a lot of.
Did we not say in that meeting, though, could we not serve? I said we could serve those notices?
I don't think so, but that's great if you can.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
if we just need to deliver something, absolutely. I thought we were talking about
No.
actually charging people or whatever. If the village
No.
needs any, if the mayor, Courtney, or you or whatever have something and you'd like the deputy to deliver, when we serve the courts. I mean, we summons and we deliver subpoenas all day long. If we need to serve somebody a copy of something, well, I don't think that's a far-fetched request,
Okay.
so.
And then one other thing brought up was we have some parking issues in the town. We've
Okay.
ordered new signs to get parking enforced.
Okay.
We have a lot of 2-hour areas in the town. And we had asked if, what we can do in regard to enforcing parking.
Okay.
And I said, do we have to hire our own parking enforcement person? And you said, just to give you some time, you'd look into that and get back with us. So what is it that you did find out that the sheriff's department could do?
If there's posted sign and it's posted legally to the revised code, I think we can probably look forward to fail to abide a traffic control device. So, of course, I can check with that if we have a particular infraction where we need to write a citation for somebody that's obviously being in violation of law. We'll check with the prosecutor that it fits that. But I think it would fit it's just like no right turn. It's failed to obey a traffic control device. So if it's legally posted to the revised code, I don't see any reason we can't work on enforcing them.
Okay, great. And in the issues, I know it was brought up that around the bus stop areas, out at the edges of our town, there's a lot of speeding going on. And we did bring that up, and we were asking for, ways that we could cut down on that speeding, just for the safety of the children and everyone else, for that matter. And I was curious, you had suggested bringing down like one of those speed
Yep.
tracker things
Yes, ma'am, I
that you
did.
could put out. Is that still on the
Absolutely.
table?
As a matter of fact, it has been, the speed itself had been broke. I'm not a big person of the flashing speed. I like putting signage up as a sign, tells you to slow down, children at play, or drive with caution. It does have the ability to show you the radar, to show you your speed, and then with a posted speed. And that is fixed, and we just tested it out the other day. I just didn't think that with the weather we had, actually, we've had pretty good weather. I didn't want to throw it out in the snow and leave it down. Of course, we haven't had any snow, but absolutely, that is ready to go, so.
Okay. And one last
Oh,
thing.
no, sorry. Go ahead.
One last thing, I may have more
Yep.
later. But I was just curious, I know David kind of touched on it a minute ago about when officers, we have officers 24 hours a day here, correct? And, sometimes, where's the officer? Well, he might have got called away on something different. There might be a shift change, things like that. But I was just looking at an old proposal by Sheriff Saban in 2011, when he did the initial presentation.
Okay.
On, what we could
Wish I
get.
had that.
Well, we can give you a copy.
Okay.
It's just different, like, prices on, how many hours a day, how many deputies we get, how many vehicles we get, and the cost. And in reading it, it actually talks about, it says, I've discussed this concept with the township trustees. I've provided them with this information as well. Should you reach an agreement with the township, my preference would be to have one contact. So initially, Sheriff Saban also reached out to the township trustees, probably to get them to help kick in
Okay.
for the cost. Obviously, they didn't do that. So Mount Sterling is bearing the entire burden of the cost. My question is, when there are incidents in Burr Oaks or McClimatsville, and you get a call, isn't it in fact the deputy from Mount Sterling that does respond to those?
Most times.
Yeah. I was just curious about that.
I think he has an obligation. If we have a victim or if we have somebody in need, the officer's got a sworn right to uphold the law. I don't think, victims don't know any boundaries.
Right.
I think that's being neighborly. I understand that, yes, you are providing the contract for your community and for your citizens here. Those are your stakeholders.
Yeah, I'm not saying I have a problem with it.
Oh, no, I
Just wanna make
understand.
sure that everybody
Yeah,
understands.
but, your neighbors are your stakeholders as well. So,
I agree.
yeah, so.
I agree.
But, yeah, I understand that, it kind of makes sense if somebody's hollering for help in Burr Oak, you got to go.
Well,
But-
yeah.
I'm sorry, Craig, you had a question, sir?
You was talking about signs there a minute ago, and you basically talked about right turns, stops, speed. What about hazmat and weight limits.
We talked about that the last meeting, and as a matter of fact, we did speak with our our commercial traffic enforcement officer, trying to get a program get down so he can get back and let us know what hours he's worked down here and what citations that he's issued, because I think that was one concern, was trucks going down the streets that they shouldn't be or whatever, and we have been moving forward with that. So as for the numbers of arrests or numbers he's seen or the hours that he worked and didn't observe any violations, I don't have that right now.
These will be specific streets. They're for the fertilizer plant. They cut across through the residence. It has one road now, street,
Okay.
which will get them out to 56, and I think that's where they belong, once out of the residence area. And they're cutting across to get O'Day Harris and stuff like that.
And
And that's why I was wondering, would they be enforceable?
if the truck is over limit, and if the truck is not obeying the traffic control device, like if it says no trucks, no through truck, that is the traffic control device posted, as long as everything is posted within the revised code. You know, like I said, if we have a sign and we know that odd people are obviously violating them, let's get that reported, and we'll check with, like, once again, with the prosecutor to make sure that they are posted within, I'm sure they are, they wouldn't have been posted. Who posted them, the village or the
We haven't
county?
posted them yet.
We're in
That's
the
why.
process of doing just that.
Okay.
So I'm chairing the street commission this year, and Mr. Hicks is, he's dead on. We have a lot of cross traffic simply because there's a lot of concentration. I mean, everybody knows 62 and 56 intersect here in town, and the major employers that are around here all ship by truck. I mean, you can't get around it, but the issue is, again, we got shift changes, we've got, you know, major shipments going in and out to all of our major employers virtually 24 hours a day. Yeah. And it's getting to be kind of sharp elbows and a little.
Which is a
tight
good thing.
places.
I think that's a good
In some
thing. You
ways,
got-
it's a
you're-
great
you're
thing.
busy. I mean,
Yeah,
that's-
absolutely. We definitely like the job situation here. But it is starting to take a toll on our streets because, as you know, infrastructure goes away over time, has to be replaced. Potholes, that sort of thing. So yeah, we're working on getting signage posted, and it will be posted consistent with the revised
I think
code.
your county engineer would be a good,
Absolutely.
good reach out
Heck
to
yeah.
on that.
We'll take it.
Other council members, any more questions? Do we have any questions from, okey doke.
Okay, we need to stand to the podium here and state your name and where you reside at inside the village.
This town all my life.
Huh?
Said he's been in this town all his life.
My name is Mike Stage, and I got a few questions for the sheriff. Because like with, like you said, the traffic. When the freeway shuts down up here on 71, the traffic's going through town, you can't even get in or out anywhere. Plus, we have one sheriff spends more time in the office than he does on the highway, and he should be out here watching the traffic going up and down this road. Because there's quite a few times me and some other people too almost got hit by semis running the red lights. And one morning, I'm on a block watch here in Sterling. I'm out at night.
Okay?
Once in a great while, I might see a sheriff in town. Or it's good like to travel all the way around town. I took Mr. Timmons with me sometimes. And there's not a sheriff in Sterling. And they're there half the time. Sometimes I'll meet them, I'll talk to them. And they all know who I am because I got this odd-looking car I drive.
Sure.
But like one day, I was aggravated with one of the sheriffs because my mom passed away last May. And instead of going through this funeral service for us, he was over Ben and Joey's eating lunch.
Instead of doing the escort is what you're saying.
Escort for the funeral home down here in Porter's. And the Undertaker had to put his arm out so one car down from flying through our session. Then we come up here at the red lights, and they started running through there too.
Okay.
But like I said, there's going to be a bad wreck here in town because you got tankers coming in flying, and they don't even, when the red lights are red, they still run right straight to them and almost hit everybody. And something's got to be done.
Okay.
And when they say there's a sheriff on duty 24/7, well, sometimes I don't even see him at all. Even on Sundays. I had a call one time from London come down because somebody sliced my tire. I waited for 35 minutes for somebody to come in.
Well, I assure you that there was somebody responsible for the village. Now, that you drove through or didn't see him, I understand, or if they got pulled away, I understand that as well. And that is a concern, and that's one thing that we have to press on to our deputies that work, and that they like to see the presence down here. We understand that sometimes they get called away or have
Some
changes.
big issue is, over here at the Sunoco, there's only 2 people works at night. And somebody come in, they can rob it,
Mm-hmm.
put them in a cooler, lock it down, they're gone. No way to find them, which way to go. Because I said, tonight, worry about that a little bit.
I always worry. I worry about the residents constantly.
I do too all the time, because like I said, I was born and raised in this town.
Well,
I love this town.
Mr. Stage, I will explain one thing too, that, because we work on the contract, and the current contract that has it place is, that the village is technically paying for 16 hours of coverage, while I pick up the other 8, because we know that we want somebody responsible for the village. It's also stipulated in that contract that anytime one of the deputies that the village technically pays for is off on paid leave, sick leave, or whatever, that they would not be normally covered down here, that they would get the standard coverage of what the rest of the county gets. I traditionally, since I've been in office, and even when Jim takes over, if somebody calls in sick down here, or if Deputy Dill in the daytime calls in sick, replace him. I take that cost. It takes 3 deputies to cover the 112 hours that the village currently is running the contract with. I take care of the other 56 hours. We have a commissioner in this room that knows the cost of doing business. I want to relate to the council right now that if we didn't even have this contract, or we wouldn't talk, and I wouldn't be trying to work with the contract at a 3% increase, that the current contract rate for that would be an area of $347,000 just for salary alone.
What is it you're,
$347,000 just for salary alone at today's date,
for what?
to cover the 112 hours that need to be covered in the village for 3 deputies. That doesn't include the cost of these cars. That doesn't include the cost of the fuel that we pay for. It doesn't include the uniforms that I put uniforms on my guys' back. That doesn't include the weapons that I give them, the training that I give them. Because I think you guys really need the presence down here.
What about security?
You really do.
What could we have, like, security down here a little bit to help the sheriff?
I'm sorry, but Mr. Stage, I don't do security.
No, I mean-
I have deputies. I understand what you're saying. We're here to talk about the contract, and we're here to talk about law deputies assigned to your village and responsible to calls for service in your village. I get it that sometimes we wait. I can tell you that honestly, as I left here tonight, the call for service came in and the deputy was there within 2 minutes, because I was talking to him when he went to the call. But we don't hear about the calls where, oh my gosh, the deputy was right here when that happened. Or the calls that, oh my gosh, the deputies and the girl come in and they sat with my little kids and she was so scared and now she's so fine. We never hear about the good. We only hear about the concerns. And I'm taking every concern that you folks have here this evening, because if I don't hear them, then I can't address them. And I will do my best to address them. I'm your sheriff. But I also understand the woes that the village is facing. The mayor and I have talked, and I know where the mayor works up there. They come downtown and they say, well, I didn't see the officer. I drove through 2 times. Well, I understand that you go through some villages, they got 2 and 3 officers running around all over. We're not that fortunate down here. We're not that fortunate. Me and the commissioners have supported to make sure that we have somebody responsible for this village 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think your businesses deserve that. I think your banks deserve that. I think your residents deserve that. And I think your stakeholders and neighbors deserve that. Because we try to get people, and we want people to come to our community. We don't want them not to come here because the woes of law enforcement. So it does concern me when you have complaints on law enforcement, because I think that when they have a deputy leave their house, I think they have to, I would like them to say, man, what a professional person. I understand you don't always get that, because then we deal with people in their worst states sometimes, so.
Like I said, I try to help out, because I'm all
I
out.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. And you say, well, I know they call all the time, and keep the calls coming, because I'm gonna tell you what, if you're not calling, we can't come.
Thanks, Mike.
So, thank you, Mr. Stage.
Oh, oops.
Later
put
on,
that
I'll
there?
talk to you by yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
My name's Samantha. I am a member of the village.
Hi, Samantha.
I live in Mount Sterling. I have a few questions, 3 or 4.
Okay.
First is, how long is our contract for if they were to sign a contract?
3 years, negotiable at any time.
Okay. And how much is the contract per year?
The current one,
Well, whatever you're asking for, if they were to sign the new contract, how much would that be?
I think it's 257,000. I can give you to the penny.
It was
But that was at
268.
5%, so we can change that.
I don't have it here.
I got
I've
it.
in my office.
I got it.
You got it?
Yes, ma'am. 265,741 cents and $741.18.
Okay. And if there is an emergency in town and say we do not sign a contract with you, who's responsible for coming up?
We are.
Okay. So in that case, we're paying you over $1 million. I'm sorry, $750,000 because it's 3 years. Over $750,000 to do a job you're already supposed to be doing, right?
I'm to keep the peace. Yes.
Okay. That's all I needed to know.
Any other questions, comments? Would you like to have any kind of closing comment, or?
Well, I understand her
Can
concern.
I ask one more question?
Oh, yes, go ahead,
Sorry.
Becky, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I asked this at the October 3rd meeting, but I'm still curious because you didn't know at the time. So any tickets that are written inside Mount Sterling, traffic tickets and violations, things like that, do we get any portion of that money back?
If it's written under village code, it'd go through the court, but I'm not here to generate funds for traffic violations. We will, though, it does generate funds if we do it. You're telling me if we focus on the enforcement for traffic to generate funds for the
No,
village,
that's
or?
not what I said at all.
Oh.
What I said was,
I'm sorry, that's,
well, what I said was the traffic tickets that you currently write in Mount Sterling. I'm not saying become a New Rome and start
Right,
writing them
right.
for us or anything like that. I'm saying the traffic tickets that you currently write within the village limits, do those, portion of those come back to the village?
if they're written under the village code.
And they would be if your officer writes them that way, right?
If they do. I would say most of them are writing Ohio Revised Code because that's what they're trained to do.
So then the answer is no, they're not coming back to the village because.
If they're written and submitted under village code, they would be coming back. The monies would come back to the village or whatever. I don't do, that would be between you and the municipal court. I don't know
The municipal
the
court.
cuts, or I don't know the monetary awards from that. I don't handle that.
But you handle if they write them under village code or municipal.
I don't get those funds if it's written under Ohio Revised Code. I don't, the court doesn't give me money.
Who would instruct them to write them under village code then? Who would that person be?
That would be me. They
Okay.
answer to me. I mean, if we
Okay.
need to write somebody under village code, then that would be me to instruct. That's why I said we do have a list of a few of the village codes that we would enforce.
So what's the difference between village code and ORC?
It's a law established and filed within the village of Mount Sterling. Like when they had their police department, they always would normally write on village code unless it was something that was at a higher level and needed to go under Ohio Revised Code.
But just like a regular speeding ticket right through the middle of town, could that be written on village code so the village would at least recuperate money from that?
It could be, yes.
Okay.
So that would be something that we would have to do as a council, establish those.
We actually have,
The laws are already established. No, I.
It's just the way they're
And I'll
written.
help answer her question. There's village codes that would come back even to, like I said, the no stop, or the no parking, or the speeding, or it's been years since I've worked for a village. I think, we used to write, OVIs years back, and it was a 33103 code, but they've changed that. Now all OVIs are done in state, under revised code. And it's a hard, as a law enforcement officer, it's a hard thing to say, well, should I write this at revised code or should I write this at village code? So what we did is when we first took over a contract, and I'll have to get that out, and I can get that to you, Becky, is get you the standard normal codes that would be like a stop sign or a speeding sign or a red light sign under village code. Now, actually, what monies come back, I don't know, but yes, I do understand that some of the penalty monies that the court would enforce would send that back to the village. So now you're getting even above me, because I don't know if the village solicitor actually goes up and represents those cases. We would definitely have to talk about that more if you're wanting to see more of that done versus the Ohio Revised Code that my deputies traditionally write. So we haven't really focused on that because I don't worry about generating funds with writing tickets. That's just not one of my focuses.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
can I speak just for a second?
you can come up here and talk just like everybody else, 3 minutes.
I'm just trying to help you guys understand something and the people in this room. When you used to have a police department, and when they served tickets out for speeding and stuff, the village got that because they served under those codes. Sheriff's Department, State Patrol do something a little different. State Patrol, if they pull you over for speeding, it doesn't matter where it's at, if it's out here in front, if it's out on 62, if it's out on 56. They're going to use the Ohio Revised Code that you were speeding. And that money goes to the state. When they do the Ohio Revised Code, I figure that's the way it's done with you guys, it goes to the county. Unless, once Jeff picks somebody up, that goes back to the village because they're going to use their codes. That's what he's talking about. Does everybody understand that? I just want everybody, because some people were looking like they were lost. I want you to understand that's where that money's supposed to be going. That's something I would bring up and talk to the sheriff about, is that I think they would like to have that money brought back to the village if they could.
I understand what they're saying.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt the meeting.
And just so there's no confusion, we have a uniform traffic code in
Yes.
Mount Sterling.
Yes.
So
Right, but right now, I believe that money's going to the county.
I don't disagree. That's probably the case, and we need to revisit that. The other thing I would like to ask is, would the sheriff or county commissioners be open to a month-to-month agreement while we consult with our stakeholders, our neighbors, just to try to make sure that we're making the right decision?
Well,
We're
real
gonna try very hard to get our,
That's all up to the sheriff. County commissioners don't handle any of that.
got it.
Okay, so before I close, I'll take more questions, but, like I said, I want to thank the village, over the years, how they have moved forward, because I was really hoping that, what are we, 9 years into this now? I was really hoping that we would be at the stage that the village would say, hey, we'd like some more presence. I think everybody wants more presence, but I see that we're not at the point where we're looking at hiring any more presence. So, with that taken in is that, over the years that we have been in this contract, we've staffed it. And we're talking about the livelihoods of young deputies, that if we talk about getting rid of this contract, that I may have to consider laying off if we lose the contract. I don't like to do layoffs, and that's what makes me worried about. That's when I take a contract in from here in the future, I want to take that into consideration, because when you take a contract to hire staff, and then you have to hire them, and then you have the possibility of losing that contract, then I have to make a decision. At one point in time, I either go to the commissioners and say, hey, the 3 deputies that we hired, that we entered into a contract, well, I didn't, the sheriff before me had entered into the contract, now just lost some of their funding. And we either need to pick that up and pay for them, or we need to let them know that, thank you for your service, or you're going to have to go find a job.
Sheriff, I'd like to bring this up, though. You
Yes,
brought
Mr.
some
Tam.
good comments tonight. The one about, like, the little scared babysitter. A lot of people don't know that deputy's going to check that out and everything. And you're just like a good soldier. You guys are in the danger zone a lot more times than people realize. And I appreciate that, because anytime you step out the door, it could be a domestic or anything, there's always that danger out there. And I told people, it's just like being a soldier. When you walk around that corner in a strange city in the Middle East, you don't know the same thing. But I appreciate that, and I'm glad you brought that up tonight, about the little things that people don't know about what you guys do.
I appreciate that. And I would like to ask the council to think that, so you would hope that we'd be in position that over the 9 years, and that the village has not spent the money on me that they would have traditionally spent on their own police department over the 9 years. I can tell you that, and Mayor, you might even know more than I as to what it costs to run a village police department, or you could find that number just as easy as I can. And I do ask moving forward that just like I said about hiring staff and fulfilling a contract, I do ask moving forward that I think we need to take that into consideration that, I think it's great that we have our own police department. That's a good thing to have when you have something like that. I understand the loss that the village has taken, and you worry when you lose your police department. And I understand moving forward and in the future, if things look great, how nice it would be that we could have our own police department back. And I ask that if you continue the contract with what that I put forward, and you're able to save monies over the years, and that one day we just might be able to bring our police department back, that we slowly at least work with me, so if we know that transition, that you're going to hire officers, that I can slowly absorb those, or other than just an abrupt layoff. That's all I ask, is that, that we continue to talk as we move forward, just like he said, is the contract. I think that we should always talk about the contract, and my office is always open. My phone is always available for any of the residents in here. They're welcome to come into my office and sit down. I'm your sheriff. So, once again, I apologize, if for any wrongdoings that we felt one of the deputies did, or any of the infractions the deputy may have did better or whatever, I bear that shoulders. They're a reflection of me, and I expect excellence out of my officers, and if they're not doing that, then I need to address it. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Did you want to revisit that question?
Just briefly, just to put a cap on it, would the sheriff be, as we go around our village and talk with our neighbors, we're slightly uncertain as to the timeline that's involved. We know that the deadline, or in the original agreement, is coming up. To reassure everyone, would the sheriff be open to a month-to-month arrangement for at least the near short term, should we not be able to get immediately together on all the arrangements?
How long?
Month to month, just.
For how long?
We don't know yet, but presumably, as a council, we would get together, make a decision up or down. But obviously, we still have a significant amount of community input, and we just want to make sure that obviously services continue, and we're certainly willing to pay for that.
So we have a
at least in the near term.
finance meeting or work session,
It hasn't been established yet.
okay.
Can I say something to you?
Yes.
So I just wanted to let you know, one of your comments, you said that you never hear about the good, and I do have to let you know that's not true. We do hear about a lot of the good, and I appreciate law enforcement. My family is full of law enforcement. We do appreciate you, and we know you work hard and you put your lives on the line every day. The thing is, as everyone in this area is well aware, we went through a devastating loss with our village solicitor, or not village solicitor, our village administrator, embezzling all the money from our town. And we've been in a fiscal emergency for quite a while. And, I appreciate too, it just pulls at my heartstrings to hear you say, if we terminate this contract, you may have to lay off young deputies and they may have to find jobs, and that's not our goal, but,
I understand.
when I came on this council, it was really hard. We were on fiscal emergency, and we had to let 3 people go. And we've had to trim so much fat that we think there's no fat left, and one thing that's never been, touched in 8 years is, the sheriff's contract. So that's why we're just looking at, do we need to keep it as is? Do we need to get rid of it? Or do we need to do something in the middle? Because fiscally, it's a huge, huge, $265,000 a year is a lot of money, especially for a small village where the infrastructure is falling apart and different things like that. So we do appreciate everything you have done and everything you will do. So we don't want you to think that it's...
It wasn't that ever
Yeah.
at all. I'm pleading my case.
Right.
My concerns too. I wish I didn't have to be here. I wish I didn't have to be here negotiating a contract. for something like this, but I want to make sure that we continue service and we keep that down here. I think that it's just a good thing for your residents that we have somebody responsible for the village 24 hours a day.
Okay. So we will be having a finance work session sometime in February. And at that point, this will be one of the topics of discussion. And if we go through what the normal route, then the Finance Committee would make a recommendation to council. We would then make an ordinance, or would it be an ordinance, to approve the contract. If we don't like to put things on an emergency unless we absolutely have to. We would go through 3 readings, which would take us about a month and a half out. So we're looking at probably the earliest being, maybe April, I would say, before we would be able to sign things. Does that sound month to month till then?
Well, we don't pay month to month. I say, do we just continue to honor the existing contract until, what did you say, the first part of April?
I would say we would have it resolved by then.
Yeah, that would be.
Possibly sooner than that.
Possibly, yeah.
I would extend to the village that another payment at normal, at the contract at face, and, because that would probably be due in March. And then that would give the village some time to move forward on that, so we just continue as normal, just as we are until you can come to
Get it organized, sure.
As the finance chairman, I think that'd be the best way to go to, Mayor, I think, till we get to contract.
So are you saying, we pay you twice a year? Is that right?
every 3 months.
3 months? So you're asking us to go ahead and pay for a
I
quarter?
would bill at the March, at the end of it, at the March, just as I have every 3 months. And we would move forward, and by April, we would know where you stand on the current contract.
Okay. Anybody else before we?
I would like to make one mention, and I think it needs to come in the hands. When I get back to my office, or in the morning, I've had a long day, I will submit to the mayor another contract with a 3% increase. I need some help. The village is not, at what we had, so you know what to work for. The one that we had with the 3% increase from the last contract. I understand what you said with the 5%, that was the information I had, and I thought that was the right thing to do when I did it. There was I'm not hiding anything about any numbers, so I will redo that at a 3% increase and get that in the mayor's hands.
Okay.
Well, Sheriff, one thing, I'd like to thank you for coming out, like I said, and discussing it out in the open with the public too and everything, because that's never an easy thing to do. And I'm so glad you're willing to come down and discuss to the public too. I appreciate that.
Well, I'm honored to come down here because, if you don't come and you don't, get questions thrown at you, and you don't know what you need to do. You can't just sit in your hole and think things are going fine,
So I would ask the general public, if you weren't here tonight, if you have questions or concerns, while we are doing this, our research, and we get back with our finance committee, reach out to a council member. If you know a council member, reach out to them, call Village Hall. You can leave a message for myself. Courtney would be glad to answer any questions for you. My personal email hopefully will be up and running by the end of the week. And so you can send an email to myself or Courtney, and we can address those concerns as we get ready to approach with the Finance Committee.
And I would like to point out, please do, if you're considering reduction in the hours that you want the deputy to be assigned down here, that you do reach out to your stakeholders, your banks and your businesses and your residents and get feedback from them. Because obviously, if they don't support it, then they have your support and they don't have mine. So, but, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion for
Make a motion.
adjourn?
Second that.
Okay, roll call.
I'm sorry.
To adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Craig,
And Andy.
Andy.
Okay, sorry. David?
Yes.
Melanie?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And Andy?
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned, 7:49.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great evening.
Dave. Yeah. Which one?
Andy Drake, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Chase Bank.
Right now,
Post
running for election.
I knew a few.
Ready?
He asked if it was 5, and I said I didn't.
I had a talk with him.
Okay.
That's where I'm going. That's, yeah, that's where I'm going, is that those,
Because you need to ask yourself.
all 8 traffic tickets which were written here recently.
If you pull somebody
Those are,
over in
those are,
London, I
those-